The ruined city was silent. Only the sound of wind passing through broken walls and shattered glass filled the air. Daniel moved carefully, his boots crunching against loose stones. The war had ended only days ago, but the ground still smelled of smoke and blood. He had been sent to search the ruins for survivors, though he never expected to actually find one. His rifle was ready, eyes sharp because the enemy sometimes hid in the wreckage, waiting for a careless human soldier to walk by. In the middle of the collapsed street, he saw something strange, a faint movement like someone crouching in the shadows of a broken wall. He froze and pointed his weapon, his heart beating faster. For a moment, he thought it might be just a trick of his tired eyes, but then he heard it. Soft breathing, shallow and weak. Slowly he stepped closer, his finger on the trigger, whispering to himself to stay calm. From the shadows, a small figure appeared. She was thin, fragile, her body wrapped in rags and dirt. At first, Daniel thought it was just a lost refugee, but then he noticed the glow, tiny blue lines running under her skin like veins of light. She wasn't human. She was alien. The girl lifted her face, and even in the dim light, Daniel could see her wide, terrified eyes. She raised her trembling hands as if to show she meant no harm. "Please," she whispered, her voice weak, almost broken. Daniel held his breath, ready for a trap, but there was no weapon, no sudden attack, only fear. She clutched at the dirty cloth wrapped around her shoulder, holding it tight against her body. Her lips trembled as she spoke again, this time even softer, almost as if ashamed of the words. "I'm not clean," she said. Daniel's chest tightened. What did she mean? Was she infected? Poisoned? A carrier of some alien disease? His training told him to step back, to keep distance, to protect himself. But something in her voice stopped him from moving away. It was not the voice of a soldier or a killer. It was the voice of someone who had suffered too much. He lowered his weapon slightly, but didn't put it away. "What do you mean?" he asked carefully. Her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head and tried to pull the cloth tighter, as if afraid of revealing what was beneath it. But the fabric was weak and torn, and Daniel could already see faint light glowing through it. The blue marks on her skin were moving, like living rivers of fire trapped under her flesh. For a moment, Daniel felt a strange fear. He had seen many enemies in battle, powerful creatures with weapons and claws, but this was different. This was something unknown. And the unknown was always more frightening than the enemy you already understood. The girl leaned against the wall, her body shaking from weakness. "They hurt me," she whispered. "They changed me. I should not be alive." Her words made Daniel's skin crawl. Who were they? Her own people? Humans? Some secret lab experiment? The war had been filled with horrors, and Daniel had heard rumors about hidden projects, but he had never seen anything like this with his own eyes. Then it happened. The cloth slipped from her hand and fell to the ground. Daniel's breath caught in his throat, his rifle lowered without him thinking. His heart stopped for a second as he saw her fully. Her shoulder, her arm, even part of her chest was covered in glowing symbols, alien runes mixed with human-like veins, pulsing faintly as if alive. It was not just skin. It was something new, something unnatural. His mind screamed at him to back away, to call for help, to report this to command. But his body refused to move. His eyes were locked on her, trying to understand what she was. She looked so fragile, so broken, and yet the light under her skin made her look like she carried power far beyond anything he had ever known. She looked down, ashamed, and pulled her knees closer to her chest. "Now you see why I said I'm not clean," she murmured. Daniel swallowed hard. He didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to run. Part of him wanted to help. But deep inside, he understood one thing. Whatever had happened to this girl, she was not his enemy at this moment. She was alone, terrified, and in desperate need of someone who would not treat her like a monster. The silence stretched between them. Only the sound of the wind and her shallow breaths filled the air. Daniel finally lowered his rifle completely and crouched down, keeping his distance, but softening his voice. "You're alive," he said slowly. "That's all that matters right now." Her eyes lifted to him, filled with surprise. No one had said those words to her before. She blinked, and tears slipped down her dirty cheeks. Daniel felt his chest tighten again, not from fear this time, but from something else, something he didn't expect to feel for an alien in the middle of a war zone. The ruins around them were still. But deep inside, Daniel knew that this moment was the beginning of something much bigger, something dangerous, something he was not prepared for. But he also knew he could not walk away. The girl's whisper repeated in his head, haunting him. "I'm not clean." And yet, even as fear filled him, he could not stop staring at her glowing skin, the strange beauty hidden beneath the broken cloth. Something told him that this meeting in the shadows would change everything. Daniel stayed crouched in front of her, his eyes still fixed on the glowing lines that moved under her skin like rivers of light. He had seen strange weapons during the war, had fought creatures with claws sharper than steel, but nothing had shaken him like this. The girl looked too weak to even stand, yet she carried something inside her that felt bigger than war itself. She pulled the cloth back over her shoulder, as if she wanted to hide, as if covering those marks could make her normal again. "Who did this to you?" Daniel asked, his voice quiet but heavy. Her lips trembled. For a moment she stayed silent, as though afraid that even speaking the truth would bring danger closer. Then she whispered, "Humans and aliens both. They worked together in a place with walls of glass and lights that never turned off. They cut me, burned me, and filled me with things I didn't understand." Daniel's jaw tightened. He had heard rumors of secret labs, places where captured aliens and unlucky humans were experimented on. His commanders always denied such things, saying they were enemy lies. But looking at her glowing skin, he knew it wasn't just a rumor anymore. It was real. The girl pressed her hand to her chest, right where the light pulsed strongest. "I escaped when the bombs fell. The lab was destroyed, but I should have died with it. Instead, I live like this." Daniel looked closer, noticing how the blue marks ran into patterns that looked like both alien runes and human veins. It was as if two different languages were fighting to exist on the same body. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated before answering. "Lyra." "Lyra," Daniel repeated, testing the name on his tongue. It felt soft, fragile, like the girl herself. "Listen to me. You're not a monster. You're alive. That means something." But Lyra shook her head quickly, almost panicking. "No, you don't understand. They made me into a weapon. They wanted me to carry secrets in my blood. I am not safe for you. If they find me, they will kill us both." Her words sent a chill through Daniel. Secrets in her blood? A living weapon? He tried to imagine what kind of knowledge or power could be hidden inside a fragile girl. The thought made his stomach twist. He had fought to protect humanity, but now he wondered if humanity itself had created the very danger he was facing. Lyra pulled her knees up to her chest, hugging them tightly. Her eyes darted around the ruins as if she expected shadows to come alive and grab her at any second. "They are hunting me," she said. "Not just your soldiers. My own people too. Neither side wants me alive. I carry something they fear." Daniel frowned. If they fear it, why make it in the first place? Her laugh was bitter and broken. Because they wanted power. They wanted to win the war, no matter the cost. But when they saw what I had become, they decided I was too dangerous. I am not supposed to exist. The words sank deep into Daniel's heart. She spoke with such sorrow that it almost broke him. He thought of the war he had fought, the brothers he had lost, the endless battles that never seemed to mean anything. Now, here was proof that both sides had been playing with fire. And the fire was sitting right in front of him, shivering in the cold. Lyra lowered her voice again, so soft that Daniel had to lean closer to hear. "Inside me, there is knowledge, plans, codes, a map. I don't understand it, but it burns in my head every night. They put it there. I dream of ships and weapons I've never seen, and when I wake, I know them as if I built them myself. That is why they cannot let me live." Daniel's chest grew heavy. This was bigger than him, bigger than anything he could handle. If what she said was true, then she was the most dangerous secret in the galaxy. But when he looked at her face, streaked with dirt and tears, all he saw was a girl who wanted to be free, who wanted to be seen as more than an experiment. She reached out suddenly, grabbing his sleeve with trembling fingers. "You should leave me here. If you stay, they will find you too. You will die for nothing." Daniel stared at her hand on his sleeve. He thought about walking away. He thought about reporting her to his commander. It would be easy. Say she was a threat, leave her for others to deal with, and forget she ever existed. But his heart would not let him. No, he said firmly. "I'm not leaving you here to die. If they want you dead, that means you're important. That means keeping you alive is the right thing to do." Lyra's eyes widened. She shook her head in disbelief. "You don't understand. Protecting me means turning against your own people. You will be hunted too." Daniel gave a short, bitter smile. "I've been hunted my whole life. One more enemy won't change that." For the first time, Lyra looked at him with something other than fear. It was not trust yet, but it was close. A fragile spark, like the first light of dawn after a long night. Suddenly a noise echoed through the ruins. Heavy footsteps, distant voices speaking in harsh alien tones. Lyra's body went stiff, her eyes wide with terror. She clutched his sleeve tighter, whispering, "They've found me." Daniel's heart raced. He swung his rifle around, scanning the dark streets. He could see shadows moving in the distance, glowing eyes peering through the smoke. Whoever they were coming closer, and they were not human. He looked back at Lyra. Her face was pale, her breath quick and sharp. The glowing marks on her skin seemed to shine brighter, reacting to her fear. She was trembling, ready to run but too weak to even stand. Daniel didn't have time to think. He grabbed her arm, pulling her gently but firmly. "Come on," he said. "We're getting out of here." Lyra gasped, her voice barely audible. "Why? Why risk yourself for me?" Daniel looked at her, his grip firm. "Because someone has to." Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time she didn't argue. She let him pull her into the shadows of the ruined city, away from the voices that hunted her. As they moved, Daniel felt the weight of his choice settle deep inside him. Protecting her meant danger, betrayal, maybe even death. But it also meant hope. And for the first time in a long while, Daniel realized he was not fighting for orders or for victory. He was fighting for something human. Behind them, the hunters' voices grew louder. Ahead of them, only darkness waited. But in that darkness, Daniel held on to a fragile belief that maybe, just maybe, saving this girl could change everything. The night air was cold, carrying the smell of smoke and dust through the broken city. Daniel led Lyra carefully through the ruins, his hand steady on his rifle, his other hand guiding her so she would not stumble over the shattered stones. Every shadow felt alive. Every sound made him tighten his grip. The voices behind them were growing louder, a mix of harsh alien words and the heavy crunch of armored boots. Whoever was hunting her was close. Too close. Lyra's breath came fast, shallow, as if each step drained her strength. The glowing lines under her skin pulsed brighter with her fear, lighting up her pale face in flashes. Daniel kept glancing at her, worried that the glow would betray their position, but he didn't dare tell her to hide it. She wasn't doing it on purpose. It was part of her, part of what she had become. They ducked into the remains of an old building, its walls blackened with fire. Daniel pressed her against the wall gently, holding a finger to his lips. She understood and stayed silent, though her body trembled violently. He peeked through a crack in the wall and saw them. 3 tall alien soldiers, their eyes burning like coals in the dark, their armor glowing faintly with the same blue light that ran through Lyra's skin. They carried long weapons, curved and sharp, designed to kill quickly and painfully. One of the soldiers bent down, one of near it, running clawed fingers along the dirt. Daniel's stomach tightened. They were tracking. Another raised his head, sniffing the air like a predator. Daniel realized with horror that they weren't just searching blindly, they were hunting like wolves, and Lyra was the prey. He turned back to her. Her eyes were wide, tears shining in the dim light. "They can smell me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They always find me." Daniel's mind raced. He couldn't fight them head on. 3 against 1 was suicide. But he couldn't leave her either. He had to move, and fast. "Stay close to me," he whispered back. "No matter what happens, don't run the other way. Understand?" She nodded quickly, though her whole body looked ready to collapse. Daniel waited until the aliens moved past the building, their heavy boots shaking the ground slightly. Then he pulled Lyra forward, slipping into the shadows behind them. The streets twisted like a maze, no broken bridges and half-burnt houses, creating narrow paths. Daniel moved with the skill of a soldier who had survived too many battles, silent, fast, and always watching. But Lyra was slowing down. Her breathing grew louder, her legs weak. Daniel could almost feel the hunters behind them turning, sensing the faint sound of her exhaustion. He cursed under his breath and pulled her into another alley. "We can't keep running like this," she whispered. "They'll catch me. They always do." Daniel looked at her, his jaw set. "Not tonight. Not while I'm here." She wanted to believe him. He could see it in her eyes, but fear had lived in her too long. It clung to her like a shadow she couldn't shake. Suddenly, a shout echoed behind them, alien voices rising in triumph. Daniel didn't need to understand the words. He knew what they meant. They had picked up her trail. He grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her into the ruins of what once was a library. Broken shelves leaned against each other, books scattered across the ground, their pages blackened and torn. He pushed her down behind the fallen shelves and crouched low beside her. The footsteps grew louder. The aliens were closing in, their glowing eyes slicing through the dark like knives. Daniel aimed his rifle, his finger steady on the trigger. He didn't want to shoot. Not yet. A gunshot would echo across the city and bring more of them. But if one of them came too close, he would have no choice. Lyra clutched his arm, whispering frantically, "Don't fight them. You'll die. Please, just leave me." Daniel turned his head sharply. "Stop saying that. I'm not leaving you." His voice was low but filled with iron. Her lips trembled, but she didn't argue again. She only held tighter to him, her glowing skin pressed against his sleeve. One of the aliens entered the library ruins, scanning the room with sharp eyes. Daniel's heartbeat pounded in his ears. He kept his rifle ready, watching every move. The alien sniffed the air, head tilting slightly. For a terrifying moment, its eyes stopped right where Daniel and Lyra were hiding. Daniel's muscles tensed, his finger tightening on the trigger. Then, by some miracle, the alien turned away, calling out to its companions in a harsh voice. Daniel exhaled slowly, the breath he didn't know he was holding finally escaping. The sound of boots faded again as they moved deeper into the ruins. Lyra collapsed against the wall, her chest heaving. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I can't escape them. They always come back. They never stop." Daniel placed a steady hand on her shoulder, meeting her panicked eyes. "Then we'll make them stop. Together." Her glowing skin pulsed faintly at his words, almost as if it reacted to his promise. For the first time, she looked at him not just with fear, but with something else. Something like hope. But Daniel knew the danger wasn't over. If anything, it had only just begun. Those soldiers were only scouts. The real force would come soon, and when it did, no ruined building would be enough to hide them. He stood and pulled her gently to her feet. "We have to keep moving. There's a safe route out of the city. If we reach the tunnels, we might lose them." Lyra looked at him with wide, doubtful eyes. "And if we don't?" Daniel gave a grim smile. "Then we fight." Her hands shook as she clutched the torn cloth tighter around her glowing body. She didn't want to fight. She wanted to disappear, to be invisible, to be free. But with Daniel beside her, something in her heart whispered that maybe she didn't have to face this alone anymore. As they slipped back into the dark streets, the city seemed to close in around them. Every corner hid danger. Every echo carried threat. But Daniel kept moving forward, his rifle ready, his eyes sharp. Lyra followed, her fear heavy, but her steps guided by the one fragile promise he had given her, that she was not alone anymore. Behind them, in the far distance, the hunters howled. The chase was far from over, and in Daniel's chest, a storm began to build, because he knew the next encounter would not end with hiding. It would end in blood. The tunnels were narrow and damp, water dripping from cracks in the stone above. Daniel held a small flashlight in one hand and guided Lyra with the other. The sound of their footsteps echoed softly, and every echo made her flinch. She stayed close, her eyes darting to the shadows as if monsters would crawl out of them at any second. The glowing lines under her skin dimmed and brightened with her breath, sometimes fading until they were almost invisible, then shining again whenever fear gripped her. Daniel kept glancing back at her, worried she might collapse. She was exhausted, her legs trembling with every step. He slowed down when she stumbled, letting her lean on his shoulder. "We'll rest soon," he whispered, though his own body ached. She nodded, but her lips pressed tight as if she didn't believe rest was safe. Finally, they found a small chamber where broken crates lay scattered, old supplies long forgotten. Daniel lowered her gently to the ground and sat beside her, both of them breathing heavily. He gave her his canteen, and she drank carefully, as though afraid even of water. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of dripping water. Then Lyra spoke in a trembling voice. "You should know the truth. If you keep me with you, they won't stop hunting you. They'll follow us until one of us is dead." Daniel turned his head toward her, watching her pale face and the way her eyes shimmered in the dim light. "I already know that," he said, "but leaving you isn't an option." Her hands tightened on the cloth around her body. "Why? Why would you risk everything for me? You don't even know what I am." Daniel leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "I don't need to know what you are. I can see who you are. Scared, hurt, alone. That's enough for me to make a choice." Lyra's eyes watered, but she shook her head quickly. "You don't understand. They didn't just mark me. They changed me. I'm not fully alien anymore, but I'm not human either. My body reacts to both. I don't belong anywhere. My people call me a traitor. Your people will call me a monster." Her voice cracked as she looked away, ashamed. The glow under her skin brightened, crawling across her arm in jagged patterns. Daniel stared at it, not with fear, but with a strange curiosity. It was beautiful, like starlight trapped inside her veins. "Maybe you don't belong to either side," he said softly. "Maybe that makes you something new." Her head snapped toward him, eyes wide with disbelief. "Something new? You think that's good? They see me as an experiment, a mistake." Daniel's voice was steady, though inside his chest something heavy stirred. Mistakes don't cry when they're scared. Mistakes don't want to be free. You're alive, Lyra, and that means you matter. Tears rolled down her cheeks, though she tried to hide them. She buried her face in her hands, whispering, "I can't stop the glow. Sometimes it burns. Sometimes I feel like my own body is fighting me. I don't know how long I can last." Daniel reached out without thinking and touched her arm gently. She gasped at the contact, but didn't pull away. The glow under her skin flared brighter where his hand rested, like his touch had triggered it. For a moment, both of them froze. The light spread across her shoulder, faint lines reaching her neck and collar, glowing as if alive. Daniel withdrew his hand slowly, shocked by what he saw. "It reacts to me," he murmured. Lyra hugged her knees tighter, fear trembling in her voice. "Yes, it reacts to you more than anyone else. That's why I'm afraid. They can track it. Every time it grows stronger, they can feel it. We're not safe. I'm not safe for you." Daniel leaned closer, his face serious. "Then let them come. If they want you, they'll have to go through me first." Lyra's lips parted, her breath caught in her throat. For so long, she had been told she was cursed, dangerous, something to throw away. No one had ever said they would stand for her. No one had ever chosen her. Her eyes softened, though they were still wet with tears. "Why do you care so much?" Daniel looked away for a moment, staring into the shadows of the tunnel. "Because I've seen enough of this war to know one thing. Both sides are wrong. They only see enemies, never people. When I look at you, I don't see a weapon. I see someone who deserves to live." His words lingered in the cold air. Lyra pressed her hand against her chest, feeling the glow pulsing inside. For the first time, it didn't feel like a curse. For the first time, it felt like it meant something. But the peace was broken by a sound, distant, echoing through the tunnels. A metallic clang, heavy footsteps marching closer. Lyra stiffened immediately, her body curling as fear surged back into her eyes. "They're here," she whispered, trembling. Daniel stood quickly, raising his rifle, scanning the dark passage. His jaw tightened. "Then we move, now." Lyra struggled to her feet, clutching his arm for support. The glow across her skin was brighter now, betraying her fear, casting eerie light on the walls around them. Daniel pulled her close, shielding her with his body as they began to move deeper into the tunnel. The footsteps grew louder, the voices echoing again. Lyra's breaths came in sharp gasps, her fear feeding the glow until it lit the tunnel like a lantern. "They'll see me," she cried softly. Daniel grabbed her face gently, forcing her to look into his eyes. "Listen to me. You're not alone anymore. As long as I'm here, you're not alone." Her glowing skin reflected in his eyes, and for a moment, Lyra felt something she hadn't felt in years. Trust. Fragile, trembling, but real. They moved quickly, shadows chasing them through the tunnels. Each step was a battle against fear. Each breath a promise unspoken. Lyra's heart pounded, but Daniel's presence kept her moving. And though the danger pressed closer, though the enemy was nearly upon them, Lyra realized something she had never believed before. Maybe she wasn't just a cursed mistake. Maybe she was something worth protecting, something worth fighting for. And Daniel, walking ahead with his rifle ready and his shoulders tense, had already decided whatever she was, whatever the world called her, he would fight for her until his last breath. The tunnels finally led them out into the hills, where broken trees and rocks gave cover. Daniel kept Lyra close as they moved toward an old outpost hidden in the valley. He knew the place, an abandoned human station, small and forgotten, but sometimes used by soldiers who needed shelter. If anywhere could give them a short moment of safety, it was there. Lyra's steps grew weaker, and Daniel had to support most of her weight. Her glowing skin was dim now, fading with her exhaustion, but that didn't comfort him. If she fainted, carrying her would slow him down too much. He kept whispering to her, encouraging her to stay awake, to keep walking. She barely answered, but her hand clutched his sleeve tightly, as if letting go would mean being lost forever. When they reached the outpost, Daniel pushed the heavy steel door open. The inside smelled of rust and dust, but the power was still working. Faint lights flickered on, casting shadows along the metal walls. Daniel guided her inside, locking the door behind them. He helped her sit on a bunk and handed her some food from his pack. She ate slowly, every bite small, like she had forgotten how to be hungry. Daniel sat across from her, rifle leaning against the wall. He should have felt relief. Finally a roof, finally walls between them and the hunters. But something inside him was restless. His commander had told him weeks ago that if he ever found an alien survivor, he must report immediately. Yet here he was, hiding one, feeding one, protecting one. Before he could speak, the door creaked open again. Daniel jumped to his feet, rifle in hand. 3 soldiers entered, human soldiers. Their uniforms were familiar, their faces hard from battle. Daniel lowered his gun a little, breathing out in relief, but his relief didn't last. The man leading them, Captain Harlow, was his commander. "Sergeant Daniel," Harlow said coldly, "I see you've found something interesting." His eyes slid past Daniel to Lyra, who sat frozen on the bunk, her glowing skin faint but visible through the gaps in her cloth. Lyra's eyes widened with terror. She pressed back against the wall, clutching her cloth tighter. Daniel stepped in front of her instantly, blocking Harlow's view. "She's hurt," Daniel said firmly. "She's not a threat." Harlow's expression didn't change. "Step aside, soldier. That thing is not your concern anymore." "She has a name," Daniel snapped before he could stop himself. "Lyra, and she's not a thing." The other soldiers shifted uneasily, their rifles lowering but not away. Harlow's eyes narrowed. "You forget yourself, Daniel. Do you even know what she is? She's the result of the program you swore never existed. She's contaminated, dangerous. Do you want to be executed for treason?" Daniel's chest tightened, but he didn't move. He glanced back at Lyra, who was trembling, her wide eyes begging him not to hand her over. He remembered the way she had whispered, "I'm not clean." He remembered the glowing light under her skin, not like a weapon, but like a curse she never asked for. "She's not our enemy," Daniel said, his voice steady but low. "She's running from both sides. That makes her different." Harlow barked a bitter laugh. "Different? She's a lab rat who escaped the cage. And now she's yours? Do you even realize the risk you've brought to this outpost? If the aliens track her here, we're all dead." Lyra's lips trembled, and she whispered, "I told you. You should have left me." Daniel's grip on his rifle tightened. "I don't abandon people. Not her. Not anyone." Harlow stepped closer, his hand resting on his sidearm. "Last chance, Daniel. Step aside, or I'll put a bullet in her myself." The room went cold. The other soldiers shifted, uncertain, their eyes moving between their captain and Daniel. Silence pressed heavy, broken only by the faint hum of the old outpost lights. Daniel's mind raced. This was the choice he had been dreading. If he obeyed, Lyra would die, and all her pain would have been for nothing. If he fought back, he would be a traitor to his own people. But deep inside, he already knew his answer. He raised his rifle, not at Lyra, not at the aliens that haunted them, but at his own commander. His voice shook, not from fear but from the weight of the moment. "No, you'll have to go through me first." The soldiers gasped softly. Harlow's face darkened with rage. "You dare point a weapon at me?" Daniel didn't lower his aim. "I dare to do what's right. I've seen what she is. She's not a weapon. She's not a monster. She's just someone who deserves to live. And if you can't see that, then maybe you're the real traitor." Lyra's breath caught, her glowing skin flaring faintly as she stared at Daniel's back. For the first time, she saw someone willing to stand between her and death. Not because of orders, not because of strategy, but because he chose to. Harlow's hand twitched on his pistol. The air grew so tense, it felt like the whole outpost was holding its breath. One wrong move and blood would spill. But before anyone could fire, the walls shook with a deep, booming sound. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the faint lights flickered violently. A distant explosion echoed outside, followed by alien howls. The hunters had found them. The soldiers turned their heads sharply, fear flashing across their faces. Harlow cursed, pulling his pistol free. "They're here! Daniel, if you care about survival, you'll stop playing hero and let me do my job." But Daniel didn't move from his place in front of Lyra. He kept his rifle steady, his body a shield. He knew the outpost wouldn't hold for long. He knew the aliens would break through soon. But in this moment, one thing was clear. His commander was not the one he trusted. Behind him, Lyra whispered his name softly, her voice trembling with both fear and wonder. Daniel didn't look back. He only stared at Harlow and said, "If you want her, you'll have to kill me first." Outside, the alien hunters screamed as they closed in. Inside, the outpost filled with the sharp silence of men caught between orders and conscience. And in that silence, Daniel realized there was no turning back. He had chosen his side, and it was not the one written in his orders. It was the one written in his heart. The walls of the outpost shook again, dust raining down from the ceiling. The sound of alien weapons echoed outside, sharp and heavy, like thunder rolling closer. Daniel stood firm in front of Lyra, his rifle ready, his eyes locked on Captain Harlow. The soldiers around them were tense, uncertain, caught between their commander's orders and the sight of Daniel standing against him. Lyra's skin glowed faintly, her fear lighting up the dim room. She pressed against the wall, clutching the torn cloth around her body, her breaths fast and shallow. For a long moment, no one spoke. The silence was broken only by the distant howls of the hunters moving closer. Then Lyra's voice, trembling and weak, filled the room. "They will never stop," she whispered. "You don't understand. They want me because of what I carry. If I die, the secret dies with me. That's why both sides hunt me. Humans fear it. Aliens fear it. But neither can destroy it without destroying me." Daniel's eyes flicked toward her, his grip tightening on the rifle. "What secret? What did they put inside you?" Lyra lowered her gaze, ashamed. "It's not just marks on my skin. It's something living. They cut into me, mixed human blood with alien blood, and forced it to grow. I am the key to a weapon, but also to a cure. They wanted a soldier who could cross both worlds, but what they created was me, half one thing, half another, belonging to no one." Her words fell heavy in the room. The soldiers looked at each other, fear clear in their eyes. Harlow's jaw clenched as he spat. "See? She admits it. She's a weapon, a freak of science. She should never have been born." Lyra's shoulders shook, tears running down her cheeks. She covered her glowing arm as if hiding it could erase what she had just confessed. But Daniel stepped closer to her instead of away. His voice was low but strong. "If she's the key to both a weapon and a cure, then killing her is the worst thing we could do. Maybe she's not a threat. Maybe she's the only chance either side has to survive." Harlow glared at him. "You're blinded by pity, Daniel. You think she's some innocent girl, but what if she loses control? What if the thing inside her burns out of her and kills us all?" Daniel met his gaze without flinching. "Then I'll deal with it. But until that happens, she's under my protection." Lyra lifted her head slowly, eyes wet, staring at him as though she couldn't believe what she heard. For the first time, someone wasn't looking at her like a monster. Someone wasn't calling her a mistake. But then the walls shook harder. A deafening blast ripped through the side of the outpost, throwing everyone to the ground. Metal screamed as part of the wall collapsed and smoke filled the air. Through the haze, glowing alien eyes appeared, and the hunters poured in. Chaos erupted. Human soldiers fired their rifles, the sharp sound filling the outpost. Aliens charged forward, their claws and blades cutting through metal like paper. Screams echoed. Daniel grabbed Lyra and pulled her behind him, firing at the closest attacker. One alien fell, another lunged forward, its blade slicing through the air where Daniel's head had been a moment before. The room became a storm of blood and fire. Harlow shouted orders, shooting wildly, but even his soldiers fell one by one. The aliens moved like shadows, fast and merciless. Daniel kept fighting, every shot precise, his body a wall between Lyra and death. But in the chaos, Lyra's glow grew brighter. She clutched her chest, gasping in pain. The markings under her skin burned with light, spreading across her body. She cried out, her voice cutting through the battle like a sharp blade. "It's happening! I can't hold it!" Daniel turned to her, fear flashing across his face. The glow wasn't just light. It was energy, alive and pulsing, as though something inside her wanted to break free. The aliens froze for a moment when they saw it, their eyes widening with both awe and terror. Even Harlow stopped firing, staring at her as if seeing a god or a demon rise before him. Lyra fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "This is what they made me for. This power. It kills and heals at the same time. I don't know if I can control it." Daniel dropped to his knees beside her, gripping her shoulders firmly. "Listen to me, Lyra. You're not their weapon. You're not their experiment. You are you. You control it, not them. Do you hear me? You decide what you are." Her glowing eyes locked onto his. For a moment, everything else faded, the gunfire, the screams, the hunters. Only his voice reached her, steady and unshaken. "I'll protect you," Daniel said. "But you have to fight too. Not against me. Not against yourself. Fight for who you want to be." Her body shook violently, the glow burning so bright it lit the entire outpost. The aliens snarled in fear, some stepping back, others preparing to strike. Daniel raised his rifle again, standing in front of her like a shield. Then Lyra screamed, not in pain this time, but in defiance. The light exploded outward, blinding everyone in the room. Aliens were thrown back, their weapons shattering, like their armor melting under the wave of energy. The outpost walls shook as though the earth itself roared. When the light faded, silence fell. Smoke curled in the air, and broken bodies lay scattered. The surviving aliens fled into the night, howling in fear. Harlow and his soldiers stared at Lyra, their faces pale, caught between terror and awe. Lyra collapsed, the glow dimming until it was only faint lines again. She looked up at Daniel, her voice barely audible. "Do you see now? This is why I said I'm not clean. This is why they all want me dead." Daniel knelt beside her, his hand resting gently on hers. His voice was calm, steady, filled with conviction. "I see, but I don't care what they call you. You're not unclean, Lyra. You're not cursed. You're alive, and that means you have a choice." Her lips trembled as tears fell again, but this time they were not only from fear. They were from something else, something fragile, something new. Hope. Around them, the outpost lay in ruins, enemies dead or gone. But in that destruction, something important had been born. Daniel had seen the truth of what she was, and instead of fear, he had chosen to stand with her. For the first time in her life, Lyra believed she might not have to carry her curse alone. And for the first time, Daniel knew that protecting her was not just duty, it was destiny. The ruins of the outpost were quiet now, broken walls smoking and the ground littered with fallen soldiers and shattered alien weapons. The night outside was still, but Daniel knew it was only the silence after the storm. More enemies would come. They always did. He stood over Lyra, his rifle still ready, his eyes scanning the shadows. His body was tense, every muscle aching, but his mind refused to rest. Lyra lay weak against the wall, her glowing marks dim now, her body drained after the surge of energy that had saved them. Her breaths were shallow, her skin pale, but her eyes were open. She stared at him as if searching for something, maybe anger, maybe fear, maybe regret. But Daniel gave her none of those. He knelt beside her and wiped the dirt from her face with his hand, gentle where the world had only been cruel. "You saved us," he said quietly. Her lips parted, but her voice was faint. "No, I destroyed everything. I almost killed you too." Daniel shook his head firmly. "No, you destroyed them, and you're still here. That means you won." Tears formed in her eyes, but she looked away quickly, ashamed. "You don't understand. That light inside me, it can heal, yes, but it can also kill. When I let it out, I don't always know who it will touch. I could have burned you alive." Daniel leaned closer, his voice calm and steady. "But you didn't. You fought it. You chose. That means you're stronger than what they made you." Her eyes flicked back to him, wide and uncertain. For a long moment, she just stared, as if testing whether his words were true. Then slowly, she reached out her hand and touched his chest, right where his heart beat strong beneath his armor. "Why do you care so much for me?" she whispered. You could have walked away. You could have lived without this burden. Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked at her fragile hand against him, her trembling fingers, her glowing veins. Because if I walked away, I'd be no different from the ones who made you suffer. And I've had enough of being told who to fight and who to hate. This time, I choose. And I choose you. Lyra gasped softly, her tears finally falling. She pulled her hand back, covering her face as if afraid to let him see her cry. But her body shook, not with fear this time, but with something else, a feeling she hadn't known in years. She wasn't alone anymore. Suddenly, heavy coughing filled the air. Daniel turned sharply to see Captain Harlow pushing himself up from the rubble, blood running down his forehead. He had survived the blast, though barely. His soldiers were dead or unconscious, but Harlow's eyes burned with rage as they locked onto Lyra. This isn't over, Harlow growled, pulling his pistol with a shaky hand. That thing, that creature, it will bring nothing but death. We can't let her live. Lyra froze, her fear returning instantly. Her glowing lines pulsed brighter, betraying her panic. Daniel stood in front of her at once, his rifle raised. His voice was like steel. Put the gun down, Captain. Harlow laughed bitterly, though his voice cracked. You've lost your mind, Daniel. You've betrayed your people for an alien freak. Do you even know what she carries? That thing inside her could end us all. Daniel didn't flinch. Or it could save us. The difference is how we treat her. You want to kill her because you're afraid, but I've seen what she is, what she's capable of, and I believe she's more than a weapon. Harlow's hand trembled on the pistol, his finger tightening on the trigger. If you won't do your duty, then I'll... The shot rang out before he finished. But it wasn't from Harlow's gun. Daniel had fired first. The captain collapsed to the ground, his weapon falling from his hand. Silence filled the outpost once more. Lyra stared in shock, her eyes wide, her lips trembling. She had seen humans kill before, but this time it was different. This time, someone had killed not for orders, not for war, but for her. Daniel lowered his rifle slowly, his hands steady though his heart was heavy. He looked at Harlow's lifeless body for a long moment, then turned back to Lyra. She was staring at him, glowing tears rolling down her cheeks. You killed your own commander for me, she whispered. Daniel crouched down, his voice soft but unshaken. No, I killed him because he wanted to destroy something worth protecting. He couldn't see what I see. Her eyes filled with wonder and sorrow all at once. She wanted to argue, to tell him she wasn't worth the blood he had spilled, but the words never came. Instead, she reached out her hand again, and this time, Daniel didn't hesitate. He took it, holding it firmly, grounding her trembling body with his warmth. The glow in her skin pulsed stronger at his touch, but this time it didn't flare out of control. It was steady, calm, almost gentle, like her body recognized him, trusted him. For the first time, she felt she had some control, not because she was strong alone, but because someone had chosen to stand with her. Outside, the night was still dangerous. The hunters might return, more soldiers might come, and the war between two species would not stop because of one ruined outpost. But inside those broken walls, something had changed. Lyra leaned against Daniel, her head resting weakly on his shoulder. Her voice was a whisper, fragile but clear. You stopped your heart when you saw me for the first time. I thought it was from fear. But now, I think it was because you saw me as more than what I am. Daniel looked down at her, his eyes steady. I saw you as someone worth saving, and I always will. The glow of her skin lit the dark room softly, wrapping them both in a strange, fragile light. Daniel tightened his hold on her, knowing the path ahead would be hard, but also knowing he would never let her walk it alone. In the silence of the night, with death still hanging heavy in the air, a new promise was born. A human soldier and an alien girl, bound not by war, not by orders, but by choice. And that choice, Daniel believed, might change the fate of more than just themselves. It might change the fate of two worlds.